I might have made the title a little bit like clickbait. Hey, welcome back, men, to the Oak and Ember podcast. I am the host and founder, Garrett Hines, and man, we have a great show today. And I recognize that I might have made the title a little bit like clickbait, but I think it's going to be worth it. I think it's going to be great. I've got coffee. The sunrise this morning is absolutely gorgeous. And if there was no other reason to get up super early in the morning, because there are lots of good reasons to get up super early in the morning, but if there was only one, getting up to see a beautiful sunrise is worth 5 a.m. Absolutely. I guarantee it. Because a beautiful sunrise, it's just, it's like God painted the sky. And it only happens for like a few minutes, and then it's gone, and you're never going to see the same thing again. It's absolutely worth seeing. That has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about today. That was just free. Get up, watch the sunrise. It's amazing. Okay, anyways, let's jump into today's quick comment. And all I want to talk about, it's still August when I'm filming this, and I'm still doing the whole no news, no YouTube thing. But I listen to enough people talk that there are some things going on that I think I can comment on. And really what I want to talk about today is just blatant hypocrisy. And I love the way Dave Rubin talks about it. He quotes, I forgot to pay attention to who he quotes, but he quotes somebody. And he quotes this person regularly. And the quote is, they know they're lying to us. We know they're lying to us. And yet they do it anyways. If you know who that quote comes from, post it in the comments, please. Post that down there. And it just, the way things are going currently in American society are just mind-blowing. You know, there's this constant battle between left and right and progressive and conservative and woke and not woke, and holy smokes, like we just get caught up in all of this. And the thing about it is, it's the minority of the country, and by minority I mean the small group of people in power, senators, House Representatives, President's cabinet, the swamp that is the bureaucracy of Washington. And it's a small group of people when you compare it to the enormous group of people that are having to live with the consequences of these people's decisions. And you see this play out even on the small scale. Any time where you have a business where people are the minority ruling group, in other words, the small group of people in charge, and they're making decisions that they themselves do not have to live with, and yet it impacts the majority of the people working in that organization. And it's even worse, to circle back to the whole point of this quick comment, it's even worse when those decisions are blatantly hypocritical. So there's the continued COVID thing. And there's this big call in the state of Texas, from some people. We should be wearing masks. Masks will save us. Masks will save everyone. And I don't know if they will or not. I'm not going to comment on it. I don't know the science. I don't do the science. And let's be clear, the science, like everybody says, follow the science. Science isn't a noun, it's a process. So let's talk about follow the data. That would be nice. And as an artist, I'll tell you, it's weird to make that statement. It's weird to say follow the data, because that's outside my understanding as an artistic person. But I'm learning to appreciate and understand data. But there's this ruling class that tries to tell people how to live their life, how to protect others, and they themselves blatantly reject their own mandates. Or they blatantly, for thee, not me, that mentality. And it's happening not just in government, but it's happening in our businesses and our communities. People are making decisions and running things and telling people how to live their lives and then not living it themselves. And that is frustrating. But the question then is, what do we do about it? Like, how do we go from here when it's the ruling class living this hypocrisy? And on the one hand, I just want to throw up my hands and be like, well, I don't know. That's out. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think we have to talk about it. I think the more that people talk about it, and maybe that's the answer. Maybe the answer is we need to get more people talking. Because if the ruling class, the political class, the ruling people in the heads of these organizations are in the minority, meaning they're the small group of people compared to the number of people. In other words, I don't mean that ethnicity. I don't mean minorities by ethnicity. I mean minorities by sheer numbers of people. There's a really small group of people making a lot of big decisions, and there's a big group of people that have to live with that, like you and me and everybody else watching this podcast. I doubt anybody in the ruling class of politics and big government and big organization, nobody's watching this. And that's fine. I actually prefer it that way. But everyday people like you and me, like our families, are having to live with the decisions of these people. And what do we do about it? We get more people talking. And the more I externally process this out loud. See, a lot of this show is me externally processing things and talking to you about things and trying to figure out exactly what it is. Because it's supposed to be a conversation. We're talking about this thing back and forth. And I think ultimately that's the goal. Like, we have to have better conversations. And the more we get people talking, the more our conversations grow, the better we are able to battle the hypocrisy that we're having to live with. And I think that's the answer. I think maybe that's the goal. Now, there's an interesting quick comment. And I don't really know entirely how to jump off from that into today's topic because they don't really connect, and that's okay. Sometimes it's going to be like that, and that's all right. So I'm figuring this deal out. It's a really cloudy morning, and the sunset's gone away. That's okay. All right, so let's jump into today's topic. Man, I'm really excited about today's topic because it's something that I've been working on for a really long time. And truthfully, I recognize that COVID was a bad thing. I do. COVID is a terrible thing. Lots of people lost family. Lots of people lost loved ones. Lots of people lost their lives. Lots of people are having their lives ruined by people making decisions. COVID is a bad deal. But all things live in the duality of existence, right? There is a good and bad. I would argue to almost all things, if not all things. And COVID had a good side. For a lot of people, they had an opportunity to take a hard look at their life and figure out what they could do better, what they could change, what they could grow in, what they could get rid of, what they could add. And I don't minimize the severity of the negative consequences of COVID. But I recognize also, though, that people were able to change their lives for the better because of being stuck at home with their families, being stuck at home with themselves, having to space in their brain to think because they didn't have anything else to do. And for me, that was true. COVID was a terrible deal, but there are things in my life that got better because I was stuck at home. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And today we're going to talk about how to get stronger. And again, I recognize that the title of the podcast might have been a little bit clickbaity. Is that a word? I don't actually know. Clickbaity. I might have made it look like clickbait. But the goal here is I legitimately believe that what we're going to talk about today will help men get stronger. Yes, physically, but more than that. Because we all know our bodies are on a timeline. And we're not going to be uber strong forever physically. But what we're going to talk about today is how to get stronger mentally. Because if you can get stronger mentally, then naturally your body will get stronger. If you can get stronger mentally, your life will get better. I absolutely believe this. I live this on a pretty daily basis because the mentality it takes to get stronger mentally feeds into how to get stronger Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what to do with this whole mop on my head today. If you get if you get stronger mentally, limitations become less limiting. So we're going to talk about how do we do that. And really there are two things, only two things that you have to do in order to get stronger mentally. Number one, you have to do hard expletive stuff, okay? You have to do hard stuff. And really, this isn't a thing, this is a new thing, right? I should say it that way. This is a new thing because most of existence up to, I would argue, maybe the last 2, maybe 300 years of human existence. Everything up to that point, so let's say late 1600s. And really, well, maybe that's not even fair. Maybe the last 100 years. Actually, yeah, well, it's okay. I might be wrong here. Let's say the last 100 years. So right up until the early 1900s, 1920s, whatever. Most of existence for most people required them to do hard stuff in order to just survive. The difference now is you can do life very comfortably and very easily and have all of your major needs met. Now, is that true for all people all over the world? Of course not. No. And this is a nuanced conversation, right? So don't chop this up and talk about how Garrett Hines is ignoring the terrible plight of people around the world. No, that's not it at all. I'm talking about for most people in developed countries. It is easy to do life without having to do anything hard. You can get all of, like, we live on microwave meals, for heaven's sakes. Like, you don't even have to actually cook in order to provide sustenance for your family. You can just push some buttons and poof, warm food shows up. But we have to, as men, we have to put ourselves in hard situations. We have to do hard stuff in order to develop our mental strength. Because you can't just show up one day and be really good at doing hard things. Yeah, I've heard this quote several times, and there's always two people in my brain. Let's put it this way. I'm not really good at quoting people by name. I know people said some stuff, and a lot of times I forget which is the guy that said it. There's a lot of names in my head, and I can't remember who said what. But it's a great quote. I heard it from Order of Man. That's where I heard it the first time. And I love this quote. It's really great. But the quote is, you do not rise to the level of your expectation. You fall to the level of your training. And in a sense, doing hard stuff is a type of mental training that is necessary in order to get stronger as a man. You have to get out there and do hard things. So what do I mean by that? It means going to the gym and lifting free weights and lifting stuff that's heavy. It means going to your boss and having a hard conversation and saying, hey, the way you and I interact at this job doesn't work for me. It's telling your friend something you know they don't want to hear, but it's for their good and it will help them get better as a human being. You cannot run away from things that are difficult. Clean your room. Like, if you want to start somewhere, make the bed, clean the room. Like, that's shouldn't be a hard thing, but for some reason, for some guys, that is difficult. But how are you going to go out, and Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time, how are you going to go out in the world and try to fix the world when you can't even fix your own room? So start there. Clean your room. Go to the gym. Get into a mixed martial art. Get into boxing. Get into some kind of hand-to-hand combat where you're going to get punched in the face or choked out. Like, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and I freaking loved it. But every day I was getting choked out, strangled, bent backwards, turned into a pretzel, and I loved it. Not at first. It's like everything in you in the first week is like, hey, idiot, stop it. This hurts. This sucks. Stop. But what I figured out was I wasn't ever going to be the guy to win most of the matches in my first 6 months. But I could be the guy that wouldn't quit. Like, how many times could I roll with a guy in 5 minutes? I don't care how many times I got choked out. I rolled with this guy. He was a purple belt. Super cool guy. He's very gracious, very kind. I think he choked me out 7 times in 5 minutes. But I wouldn't quit. I mean, as soon as I tapped, I was back on my knees, ready to go again. Like, let's do this. Let's go another round. I'm not giving up. I'm here to roll. I'm here to learn. And the more I did that, the more I was willing to keep doing it. Because that's the thing about doing hard stuff. It develops within you mental persistence. It develops in you the recognition that you're capable, right? Most of society now is designed so that men don't feel capable. Sit in your desk, take this test, be quiet, don't run around, don't be a guy, just be still and be quiet. And don't actually experience any success, because that might embolden your masculinity, and we can't have that. I got feisty on that one right there. But that's because I'm tired of seeing men get pigeonholed into what society thinks real manhood should look like. We don't afford our young men opportunities to build character and strength. We don't afford them opportunities to test their mettle and see how strong they could be, mentally and physically. It's one of the things that I do with my son. I love to wrestle with my son. Man, we wrestle often. And I don't think he wins very much. And when he does win, okay. But I love wrestling with him because it's developing in him persistence. Like, the kid won't quit. He knows dad is bigger, dad is stronger. But he's like, Dad, let's go again. I want more. I'm like, okay, buddy. I love wrestling with my son, but I'm teaching him to find his strength and to acknowledge where he's weak. And that's part of doing hard stuff. Hard stuff makes you take a realistic look at who you are, right? Like, you can't show up to the jiu-jitsu mat and think you're like big time stuff. You never rolled before, but you watch some videos on YouTube, so you got this. And then all of a sudden you get turned into a pretzel, and now you have to acknowledge the reality that you don't know anything. And it's humbling. But that humility will actually help you get stronger, because if your humility is developed, then you recognize, okay, there are some things I need to improve on. And if I'm willing to recognize that I need to improve on some stuff, then I will get stronger. There are a lot of guys, I think, out there, maybe, I could be wrong, I don't want to pigeonhole everybody into a box, but I think a lot of guys out there don't do hard stuff because they don't want to recognize where their weaknesses are. Like, for example, I know that my emotional tolerance needs to be worked on. I need to put myself in more situations where stuff can go AWOL and I can hold my emotional capacity to an acceptable level and not get all frazzled and stressed out and yell at my kids and all that kind of nonsense. I recognize that about myself. Oh man. Okay, my computer battery is about to die, so we're going to pause for a second. See, I wondered if I should plug this thing in first, but I didn't, and so now I'm going to have to. And that's okay, though. I told you, I'm going to film this deal. It's going to be messy, and that's fine. Oh, come on. Do. There we go. That's more better. Okay. As I was saying, I think there's a lot of guys out there that don't want to do hard things because they're afraid to recognize where it is that they are weak. And men shouldn't be weak, which is weird because society right now is excited about weak men. So I don't understand how that paradox is happening. Men shouldn't be weak. And at the same time, we like weak men. It's a weird paradox to be living in. So with that said, the first thing you have to do to develop your mental strength in order to get stronger, because the reality is you cannot get stronger physically without developing your mental strength. If you don't develop your mental strength, you will forever be weak physically. There's no other way to put it. Now, number 2, what's the other thing you have to do in order to develop your mental strength? You have to make yourself uncomfortable. Now, this is different. This is different than like doing hard stuff. They go hand in hand, but it's different. And being uncomfortable means putting yourself in new situations. Doing hard stuff isn't always necessarily new. Like when I started going to the gym, that wasn't new for me. I lifted weights as a kid in high school. I lifted weights in college. Going to the gym and lifting wasn't new for me, but it was something hard that I wasn't doing anymore. Doing things that make you uncomfortable and persisting in those uncomfortable things help you to develop the ability to control your mental responses to things. My favorite example of this is the Wim Hof Method. I've been utilizing the Wim Hof Method for a long time, before COVID started. And if you don't know what the Wim Hof Method is, you really should look it up. There's a couple of great, he's been on Joe Rogan, I think twice. He's also been on the Jordan Peterson podcast recently. And by recently, I mean within like the last 6 months. If I were going to point somebody in a direction, I would say go watch Wim Hof's interview with Jordan and Michaela Peterson from within I think it's the last 6 months. Watch that because he actually walks you through the breathing technique. But part of the Wim Hof Method is cold exposure. And if you haven't done cold exposure before, man, it is a phenomenal way to rewire your brain. And the whole deal is, it's about getting in there and not letting kind of your primal instinct run over you. Because if you get into an ice cold shower and it's winter, right? So like right now, I'm doing the cold shower thing, but it's Texas, it's August, it's 174,000 degrees outside. It's an exaggeration. It's just really hot. So the cold water's not cold. I mean, it's like barely lukewarm. And that's fine. I still am taking cold showers. But in wintertime, holy smokes, man. That bath water is cold. And there's something about stepping into that frigid, and like, if you've done it, please comment down below. If you have participated in the Wim Hof Method, if you've done cold showers, if you've done all of those things, comment what your experience was like. How did it help you? How did you grow from it? But this whole idea of making yourself uncomfortable is about rewiring your brain's natural response for the better, right? So when I step into an ice cold shower, everything in my body screams, please run away, run fast, go. We don't need a shower that bad. It's really not all that, we're not all that dirty. I think we'll be just fine without this freezing cold water on our body. But that's the more primal part of my brain. But my core part is saying, hey, no, actually, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We're going to do this. Ouch, there's an ant on my foot. We're going to do this. We're going to be okay. It's not going to be very long. We'll get out. We'll be just fine. This cold water can't hurt us. Now, the cool thing about that is when you take that ice cold shower and then you get up and you go outside and you're in t-shirt and jeans and it's 30 degrees outside and you're thinking, you know what? This cold air is not all that cold. It's not as cold as my bath water, so I'm fine. And that, as silly as that example is, that's what happens when you make yourself uncomfortable. Because then when you make yourself uncomfortable and life throws situations at you that are by nature uncomfortable, you can think to yourself, hey, actually, I'm fine. This isn't as bad as that cold shower. This isn't as bad as telling my boss that I don't like him. This isn't as bad as having that uncomfortable conversation with my wife about things that we need to talk about. Make yourself uncomfortable, and things that come at you that are uncomfortable, you are already therefore prepared and ready, and thus developing mental strength. So men, that's really what it comes down to. If you want to get stronger, if you want your body to perform better, if you want your heart to perform better, if you want to be healthier, you want to have a happier marriage, you want to have a happier family, you want to have a happier life, you want to be better at your job, all of those things, if any of those things ring true for you, then you have to develop your mental strength. You have to become somebody who's willing to do hard stuff no matter what, and who's willing to make himself uncomfortable, because then you will be prepared for the things in life that are already uncomfortable that come at you. That's it. Develop your mental strength. Become a man who is strong in his mind, and you will become strong in your body. You'll become strong in your work. You'll become strong in your family. Make yourself develop your mental strength. Man, it's been a great show. I love doing this. I love making this content for you. I hope you are finding it valuable. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It's a beautiful morning. Not sweating quite as bad. But it's been a great day. All right, man, as always, subscribe to the podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching this, YouTube, iTunes, find it, watch it, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And as always, and most importantly, share this with other men in your world. Who are the men in your life that need to join the community of men willing to be epic men and willing to live life to the fullest? Men, have a great rest of your day. And until next time, get out there and pursue life to the fullest. Cheers, guys.